Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes, and I'm excited to welcome our guest today. This is Jonathon Guyer. He is the CEO of CX Measurements out of Sartell, Minnesota. Jonathon, thank you so much for joining me today. What would you like the audience to know about CX Measurements?
Well, thank you for having me, Sean. First, I would like to describe a little bit of context. If I asked you to rate our conversation right now, how would you rate it? Would you rate it happy? Would you rate it sad? Would you rate it good? Would you rate it bad? What if it was raining outside and I asked you to rate our conversation right now? Would the weather impact your perception? Would a cold, rainy, cloudy day lower your perception of your experiences? If you were having difficulties with your kids, if your kids didn't want to get ready for school this morning, and then I asked you to rate our conversation right now, would something that happened hours ago impact your perception of this conversation?
Wow, that's interesting. So it's kind of a survey on steroids a little bit, kind of some of those environmental issues that may affect responses. That's interesting.
Oh, yes, sir. And thank you for setting that up. The challenge is isolating perception. In my mind, the way all customer surveys fail is you can't isolate these environmental variables.
That makes a lot of sense. That's very interesting business that you're getting going here, because that's impressive. Well, let's jump to our questions then. Our first question: is there a time in your business where there was a challenge that you had to overcome that you're especially proud of?
Yes, sir. COVID. When the lockdowns came, I started a new position. I was vice president of customer success. When they restricted our ability to pull team members into the office, and our customers simultaneously were experiencing the same kind of challenges, everything got kind of wishy-washy. It was there wasn't a straight line to measure ourselves from. Were we taking the appropriate actions? Were we taking the appropriate steps? COVID was hard for everybody. If I made my team members come into the office, like the business actually needed them, I could be taken away from their kids, which their kids actually needed them.
Right.
And from my position, it was on my shoulders to make that call. It's kind of a lose-lose decision making. Our company scaled up 3 times larger during that COVID period. So when most companies were contracting, we thrived.
Well, yeah, congratulations on that. Yeah, that's a significant challenge that you overcame. So well done. All right. Well, question number 2: how can leaders foster creativity within their team?
Genuine interest. If a team member suggests an idea and I am 100% opposed to it, understanding that my potentially negative perspective could be biased to how I'm engaging with this team member. Not only am I biased against the idea, but I'm in a position of management, right? So it's incredibly easy for me to squash into innovation. It's so much so that I have to be super cognizant of encouraging team members and not doing what I just described. So curiosity. First, I flush my mental palate and I ask questions. What is the team member thinking? Like, I am generally interested in figuring out what they're talking about, expand on. In my experience, ideas, we call it brain dumping. Regardless of what the ideas are focused towards, regardless if they're on topic, off topic, there's value to bad ideas. There's value to good ideas. Like, all ideas have value. It might be a fundamental building block to something more useful that we need. Curiosity and interest. The leadership role, I feel kind of parental, and team members, it's kind of like a family environment. You want kids to teach you stuff. It encourages the kids. It makes the kids enthusiastic. It's a bond. I actually want to know what team members are thinking.
Well, that's great. So for you, curiosity and fostering the curiosity leads to that creativity and that outlet of creativity.
Yes, sir. That encourages them. Like, it makes it a safe environment. The challenge for me is to not be intimidating. And I think that's a challenge for all management.
Very true. Yeah, very true. Great comments. Really appreciate those. All right, question number 3. How can leaders build trust between team members?
Stability. I think that the biggest role that the leader can make is provide that stability. Also building off the parental kind of metaphor there. If the team members are engaging, and I'm picturing myself as the leader, watching this happen, and how can I encourage them to get along? The stability on my part, making it predictable. My attitude, my perception defines the borders of the conversation that they're having. Right. And this is a reference to company culture. My stability is the company culture, and the company culture will dictate what's appropriate in that conversation.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Question number 4. Share an example of a perceived failure that you've had, either in business or in life, that you turned into a win.
COVID, the lockdown was a failure. When this started, our company was heavily dependent on in-house team members. Our SOPs, our processes, essentially the skeletal system of our company was dependent on people being there. When the lockdowns happened, we weren't able to have all the team members in there. The stability that I was referencing and did not apply. The stuff that we've been building over the years to get to that stability was gone. By making it up as we go, it was a clean start. We knew what it had to look like when we were done. We knew what the output of the team members needed to be. How we got there, we had no idea. That was awesome. It was essentially cleaning the plate and starting fresh. And we didn't plan on that. We didn't ask for that. It happened. It ended up being awesome. We tripled the size of the company, and this failure is why we did it.
Yeah, that's COVID was definitely an interesting time, to say the least. But I'm glad that it was something that you were able to say, okay, we're going to turn this into a win, and that's obviously what you did by tripling your the business. And I think that's just such an exciting story. So thank you for sharing that. All right, our last question. Tell us a little bit about your first job.
I detasseled corn when I was 14, which there's very few people that have done that might understand the reference, but it's I don't think it passes child labor laws as of 2023. In a cornfield, it's super humid and you have 105-degree temps. I'm making that number up, but it was hot enough where heat stroke was a thing. And then I think the average kid was about 12 years old. 100 of us on buses being shipped in.
Oh, wow.
Just walk up and down the fields all day. With that being said, there were some major leadership lessons learned in those fields. So the stuff that I seen there still applies today, because you have kids that don't really want to do it. Most of them were there because their parents made them. It was horrible conditions. Yeah, I don't think it's legal nowadays, or questionable. And it didn't pay a lot. There wasn't a lot of value there. I have nothing but positive memories of this experience.
Well, obviously you're a hard worker because you've made a lot of things happen. So I'm glad that you brought that with you to that job, I'm sure, but you've also been able to foster it ever since, because I really admire what you've done with your company. So that's great. Well, Jonathon, thank you for joining me on the podcast today. How can people find you?
Through our website, cxmeasurements.com, and I am heavily invested on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is our #1 site.
Fantastic. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, we encourage you to go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to follow or subscribe to the podcast wherever you may be watching or listening to it. And again, we remind you, as always, to have humility to learn and courage to act on what you've learned. Thanks so much for joining us today, and have a great day.